And here we find ourselves at the end of Animal Farm. If you had your hopes up at any point that things would eventually improve for the animals and they would reach that utopia they had been dreaming about throughout the story, then those hopes are devastatingly dashed by the end. The farm seemed to reach its peak shortly after the rebellion, when there really was unity and everyone seemed to have close to a fair share of work and luxury. But we have witnessed a chapter-by-chapter decline in the quality of life for the common animals, and a chapter-by-chapter increase in the power and luxury that the pigs enjoy. If there's anything salvageable by this point, it's the fact that, thanks to the pigs' ongoing propaganda, the animals are still largely convinced that they have it better now than they did at the beginning of the story when they were under Jones's rule. The chapter opens by telling us that years have now passed, and many of the events that we have read about in the preceding chapters that seemed so new and intolerable are now just part of the ordinary life of the animals. We're told that the farm is more prosperous and better organized than ever before, though we have to think about who is actually benefiting from all of this prosperity. It's certainly not the common animals, who, while in the midst of building a second windmill, are explicitly told that they will not be enjoying any new luxuries. In fact, as Napoleon tells them, the ideals Snowball once taught the animals to dream about are contrary to the spirit of animalism, and the truest happiness lay in working hard and living frugally. Of course, this is a bunch of nonsense, since Napoleon himself doesn't actually follow this precept, but it's good enough for the animals. There are several stunning descriptions in this chapter that directly reference Old Major's speech in Chapter 1 and the behaviors that he denounced. For example, we're told that the farm had grown richer without making the animals themselves any richer, except, of course, for the pigs and the dogs. And later, neither the pigs nor the dogs produced any food by their own labor, and there were very many of them, and their appetites were always good. What's interesting, though, is that the common animals never seem to recognize this disparity in a way that they can clearly articulate or do anything about. They're all vaguely aware that their conditions are not very favorable, but for most of them, this is just normal, and the older animals cannot remember what life was like before the rebellion, so they mostly just go with it. What's odd, though, and a little sad, is that the animals never lost, even for an instant, their sense of honor and privilege in being members of Animal Farm. It's really an extraordinary accomplishment, if you think about it, that the conditions are seemingly even worse than they were prior to the rebellion, yet the animals are not only unaware of this, but actually take pride in their so-called freedom and equality that they share on the farm. And as if things couldn't get more obviously tyrannical, the pigs teach themselves how to walk on their hind legs. The one slogan that the sheep had been taught to summarize all the principles of animalism, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, is now thrown out. And just as the animals watch in horror as the pigs parade around the farm on their 2 legs with actual whips in their hands, the sheep blurt out a new phrase that Squealer had taught them. 4 legs good, 2 legs better. Now, this is an obvious contrast to the whole rebellion and spirit of animalism, since this phrase of the sheep's had been meant to point out how not just humans, but all the ways of humans were wrong. Now the pigs are directly adopting yet another very unnecessary human behavior, and they're carrying around whips. Who do the animals think the whips are for? At least Clover and Benjamin understand what's happening, and when they go to the barn to look at the commandments, they find all of the original commandments are now completely gone, and the only rule that's left is a completely nonsensical aberration of the most important commandment, now reading, "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others." Again, the statement doesn't make sense on its surface, but it showcases first the pigs' willingness to flaunt their power and privilege, and second, the majority of the animals' complete lack of ability to understand what's truly taking place. The rest of the chapter is spent drawing direct parallels between the pigs and the humans, demonstrating that the whole story is ending exactly where it started, or if anything, the animals are actually worse off than they were before. The pigs are now carrying whips, setting up telephones, smoking pipes, dressing in clothes, and hosting human visitors on the farm. We're told when the humans arrive, the animals don't even know if they should be more afraid of the humans or the pigs. The humans and pigs all go into the farmhouse, And the remainder of the chapter shows us the common animals standing outside the farmhouse, peeking in and witnessing the pigs' and humans' interactions. There seems to be a lot of celebrating and amend-making, and Pilkington even points out that the lower animals on Animal Farm did more work and received less food than any animals in the county. And to make the whole point of the story all the more obvious, he concludes his speech by saying, "If you have your lower animals to contend with, we have our lower classes," pointing out that this story never really was about animals in the first place. It was always about the relationship between the ideals of unity and utopia and the reality of greed, wealth, and power. Napoleon responds to Pilkington by letting everyone know that they're making a few final changes to the way the farm is being run. They're dropping the term comrades, since it's a little ridiculous now to think that they're actually comrades with the lower animals. They're not honoring Old Major anymore. They took the hoof and horn off the flag, and most importantly, they're changing the name of the farm back to Manor Farm, showing that indeed the story is ending exactly where it began, with a return to the notion of the lords in the manor and the peasants in the field kind of structure. After all of this speechifying and love shared between humans and pigs, they resume their card game and, within moments, are back to fighting with one another. Only this time, when the animals are looking in through the window, they looked from pig to man, from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. And the story of Animal Farm ends by showing that the pigs had really, in almost every way, returned into humans. And the rebellion that had been fought to free the animals of their human oppressors had really just made way for new oppressors to step forward and make conditions, slowly but surely, a little worse for the animals in the end. There are many lessons that the story of Animal Farm teaches us. And as we watch the arc of idealism launched by Old Major's revelations and the initiation of the rebellion slowly melt away before the greed and manipulation of the pigs, we witness how the lower intelligence and lack of education of the animals results in their so easily being deceived. We see the influence that fake news and misinformation wields, and we see how, as Benjamin puts it, hunger, hardship, and disappointment being the unalterable law of life, at least for the animals who are subjugated through physical threats, outright lies, and other forms of manipulation. We have to remember that Animal Farm functions as an extended fable. Although at times it directly parallels some events that truly have happened in history, its message stands as a universal warning to readers about the nature of mankind and its vices, and how precarious and fragile society really can be, no matter the ideals or optimism it's founded on.